You're listening to Runions Have Layers, the podcast where two siblings explore the many layers of life and mental wellness, where vulnerability meets strength and where every shared story is a step towards self-discovery. Join us as we uncover the richness of our experiences and find empowerment in every layer.
Welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about cultivating a positive mindset and how we can use gratitude to help that. And gratitude really helps with our mental health and also our physical health. And so we're going to talk about that. But before we do, if you want to know anything about what we're going to talk about, we're going to have the links to some of these resources in our show notes. So please check that out. And I do want to mention that we are not professional mental health providers or anything. These are all based on our own life experiences and our own personal research that we've done throughout the years to help solve some of our own issues and problems and to grow from them. So I just want to put that out there that this is not anything that's super scientific, but this is based on our own experiences. So first we're going to talk about the mental side of gratitude and how it helps us.
Before we get into the benefits of how it can help us psychologically, I do want to explain real quick about how gratitude affects the brain. So when we express gratitude in any form, our brain releases dopamine and serotonin, and those are two crucial neurotransmitters that are responsible for our emotions, and they make us feel good. That's why a lot of times they're called the feel-good hormones or the happy hormones. They enhance our mood immediately, which makes us feel happy from the inside.
And some of the positive psychological benefits that can help improve your mental health is it gives you a positive emotional boost. And whenever those chemicals are released into your brain, like Holly said, it can make you feel happy. And so expressing gratitude can really help with that.
Yeah, it also reduces stress. It reduces cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And, when we're feeling really stressed out or really fearful about something, thinking about something that we're grateful about can immediately start to reduce that stress. It's not going to take the stress away, but that's definitely an added benefit.
Yeah, and the next way it can help is not necessarily a mental health psychological benefit, but I think overall it could be is to improve relationships with people. I think that if we have issues with relationships, the people that are close to us, it can create the stress. And when we're more grateful towards the people that we are interacting with, that we are living with, or anything like that, it can really help improve those relationships, which I think in turn decreases the stress level that we live with in our mental health.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that it indirectly improves relationships because when your relationships are good and when you're happy within those relationships, then you do have less stress and less mental strain, and then of course the opposite is true as well. What I've noticed is, I feel more satisfied with just life in general. Whenever I'm more grateful for the things that I have and the people that are around me, I feel like I have a stronger sense of, belonging in the world and happiness in general.
Yeah, I agree with that. I can relate to that a lot because, it's easy to see things really negatively. And I feel like gratitude really helps just to see the world at a larger sort of macro level. I feel like when you're grateful for things, it really reframes the way that you see things. And when you start with the people around you, it starts to sort of permeate to an even broader sense. Another way that it helps too is better sleep quality. When our bodies and minds feel less stressed, we're more likely to sleep better and to let our guards down, to just have a better night's sleep. And again, going back to that stress level, when our cortisol is really, really high, it puts us into that fight or flight mode to where we're sort of like on a defense all the time. And whenever we can lower that stress level, it lets us to kind of let go a little bit more and just relax.
It also increases resilience, which, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. And a lot of people think resilience is just bouncing back, and that is part of it. But cultivating resilience is being able to have tools so that when the negative things happen or when the tough times come, that we have ways to move through that. And gratitude is a big part of that.
So moving on from the mental health into the physical benefits of practicing gratitude is that it lowers your blood pressure. I feel like stress is really tied to this subject as a whole. So I feel like there's a lot of things about reducing stress that gratitude can help with. And gratitude is a really easy way to lower the blood pressure. And that's directly tied to stress, I feel. And obviously a bunch of other things. But yeah, practicing gratitude can help to lower blood pressure.
Yeah, it can also help to strengthen the immune system because stress can cause our immune system to, be weaker and be more susceptible to germs and anything like that. And so gratitude is a good way to help boost your immune system.
The next way is heart health. And it's sort of like, working out your heart a little bit and letting yourself feel those happy emotions. And the more that those happy chemicals are around in our blood and through our system, the less stress and the less work it has to do. It feels a little bit easier to do. So whenever we practice gratitude, it helps with our heart health and improves our overall that pumping of the organ.
I want to mention something that I read the other day by Emily Fletcher, who is the founder of Ziva, which is a well-known meditation training site. She mentioned in one of her publications that gratitude can be like a natural antidepressant. The effects of gratitude when practiced on a regular basis can be almost the same as medication, which I found fascinating. But I say that with a caveat. We're not saying that medication is not needed or that gratitude is the same as an antidepressant when you need it, or that it's going to magically solve all your problems. Gratitude is a piece of the puzzle, just like medication can be a piece of the puzzle. And I am pro medication. I don't know about you, Brian, but I definitely feel like it has its benefits when it's needed.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, I depend on, I've never really had to rely on medication, or I've never been in a situation where medication has really changed the way that I live in the world. So I feel like my opinion is a lot different. But I don't think that medication is bad. I tend to try to approach things from a non-medicated point of view if I can, but sometimes I think that's the best course. And that's why it was developed, is to help us. It's not developed to hinder us or, make it hard, to make life harder. That's not the goal. But I do think that gratitude can have some of the effects of some of like the medication that we are taking, but it has to be a repetitive thing. It's not like you can just like do it one day and it, creates the same effect. It's a consistent sort of thing that you have to get yourself into. And going back to the habits that we talked about before, is building habits and practicing gratitude on a daily basis over a period of time and getting those chemicals to release in your body. That is what we're talking about. Like, that's the effect that can have on our mindset and our body, is of the repetitive action of giving gratitude and expressing gratitude to people. I want to talk next about what the heck is gratitude in the first place. Feel like people say gratitude a lot, and especially around Thanksgiving and, giving thanks, and which I guess that, when you think of gratitude, that's what it is, but I think it's more than just saying thank you. I think that gratitude is also about the actions that we take, the little things that we do for someone, and how that can also express gratitude. What are some ways that you've received gratitude from someone that has sort of stuck with you? Is there anything like that you can remember?
Yeah, the one thing I can think of off the top of my head is, and it's not some big gesture, which it doesn't have to be. I think that's important to mention also, is I had been helping a friend of mine with some stuff at her house, and she took me out to lunch, and, food is my love language. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
And she said, I wish that there was more I could do, but I just want to show you how grateful I am for your help. And I really appreciated that. It was a great time, and we were able to connect and have good conversation. And I think it's important to note it doesn't have to be some huge, big gesture or, some lofty thought or words. It can just be just something genuine. I really appreciate you. Thank you. At least that's what I think.
Yeah, I feel like the action of her taking you out to lunch actually shows more how much she is grateful for what you did to help her, because it's so easy to say thank you so much. I really appreciate you, or like that's such a common expression, and people say it, and not that they don't mean it, but whenever you go out of your way to invite someone to have a conversation with them, and to show them like how much, like thank you so much, like and it's not like they spent a lot of money. You might have spent 40 or 50 bucks on that lunch with whatever you guys got, and maybe less, I don't know, it depends on where you went. But the fact that she wanted to do that shows that she was really grateful. And also you connected, and you had like a connecting moment between your relationship, and now your relationship is better for it, because it's not just like, oh, thank you so much, but you probably had conversations and talked about different things that were not just about what you did for her. So it really creates, it helps to build the trust in relationships too.
Yeah, for sure. And it's something that I didn't expect. She just asked, I'd really love to take you out to lunch while you're here. Would that be okay? Or do you have time? I can't remember how she asked. And, it was a really nice surprise. And you're right. The words thank you, it's not that they don't mean anything. I don't know if you've ever been around someone who says thank you all the time about everything. To me, it loses its meaning. And so that expression of taking me out to lunch and spending time with me was, because it was quality time, was more heartfelt than just words. And I'm not saying that the words thank you shouldn't say them, but that's a good example of how, words are just words, and they have the meaning that we give them, but sometimes overusing them can make them lose their meaning.
Yeah. A way that I've received gratitude, which is super simple, but a coworker just like showing up with coffee for me, knowing like what I like to drink and buying it and just having it for me whenever they come in from work. And it's just very thoughtful and shows that they are grateful for me, and that they thought about me, and not just me, but the whole team, and that they were grateful for what we had and everything we were doing, and that they saw all the hard work that we're doing. And so sometimes I try to do that now whenever I have a chance, is just to buy people coffee and just say, like, here you go. Here's your favorite drink from Starbucks or whatever. And thank you. And I don't even have to say thank you. That's the gesture. They understand what that means. And it just means a lot, especially whenever they don't ask you, hey, do you want coffee? It's like they just show up and like they got it for you, and they know exactly what you drink.
Yeah.
Let's talk about practical tips. What are some practical tips that we can give to our listeners about daily gratitude? The first one for me is, we've talked about journaling a few times in this podcast, and I think that it can be a powerful tool. And, keeping a gratitude journal is such an easy way to practice gratitude and to keep ourselves accountable, and to look back at some of the gratitude and the things that we've been grateful for, and also possibly things that we've been dealing with, to change the course of how we're thinking. I do this just with a journal, and I don't have anything special. I just have just a blank journal and just write down something I'm grateful for. I don't do this every day, but I do it a lot whenever I'm getting into a really foggy headspace, or I'm feeling particularly negative. I'll write something down and just say, I'm grateful for this today, because otherwise I'm just going to focus on all the negative.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried a gratitude journal?
I have. I am not big on, well, it's not that I'm not big on journaling. I know that there's immense benefits, but I need to get in the habit. Going back to our habits episode, I need to, create the habit. But something that I do, and it sounds so silly and my kids laugh at me, but a couple times a week, I have to get up at 5 a.m. to take my son to school. And I am not a morning person by any stretch of the imagination. And if waking up on the wrong side of the bed was a person, it would be me. And so when I get up and I'm like, I have to get up immediately, I say, I'm so happy and grateful that I get to spend time with my kid. I'm so happy and grateful that I have a car that can, and all those things. And it sounds so silly, but I say it about 3 or 4 times, just, mentioning things that I'm grateful for because, life could be a lot worse. And it
Hmm.
does, it changes the course of my day and my morning. And by the time I get upstairs and go to the bathroom and have my coffee and take my medicine and all of that, I'm in a better mood. And yes, I
Hmm.
know my body is naturally waking up during that time also. But for me, I've noticed a difference in doing that. And
Hmm.
it reminds me of what's important because I can always come home and go back to sleep. Or, it depends on the day. But like, for example, this morning, I did it this morning. And when I got home, I felt great. So that's something that I do.
Yeah, I mean, the flip side of that is you would just be negative about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I got to get up early. I'm tired. I have to drive. I don't feel like doing it. Like, then you have all those negative thoughts. And
Mm-hmm.
then naturally, that's going to put you in a bad mood. And maybe you don't connect with your son about what's happening. And maybe you don't have a good conversation. And then that affects your relationship with him. And so, like, there's a lot of other side effects to having the negative side. And then, but if you're in a good mood, then it creates all those opportunities for connection. Because when you're in a
Right.
good mood, you want to talk more, you want to, ask more questions, you have conversations, you have a good time, and it just helps so many things whenever you are able to get yourself into a more positive headspace.
Right. And that's not denying the fact that I hate mornings or that I woke up grumpy and
Absolutely
I don't
not.
really, I don't want it to sound like I'm just like, oh, well, screw that, screw how I'm feeling. I'm going to be grateful. I just have to remind myself sometimes when the immediate thought when I wake up is, oh, I don't want to get up, that the reason that I'm doing this is bigger than the amount of sleep that I'm, not the amount of sleep I'm getting because that's important, but waking up that early in the morning, it's more the reasons I'm grateful are bigger than that.
Hmm. Yeah, it totally makes sense to me. I don't think that we're saying that, we don't want to acknowledge or respect the feelings that we have, but it's just a way to break the cycle of having those negative thoughts or like keeping yourself from doing something. Like if you want to, like maybe there's someone who wants to start waking up and going to the gym in the morning, or they want to wake up and they want to go, they want to start a different habit, maybe early in the morning, just using that as an example. Instead of thinking about how much you hate waking up or how much you don't want to do it or you're too tired, shift that perspective to like, what, I'm getting up early because I want to do this thing, and thinking of the bigger picture, and shifting that and using gratitude to do that and saying, I'm really grateful that I can get up to go do this other thing, that I have the time, that I have the bandwidth, that I have the physical health, whatever that is. And thinking of that instead, it really shifts your perspective. Like, like I want to get up now because I can and because it's something I want to do. And I think, expressing gratitude not only towards others, but towards ourselves is important. Being grateful for the things that we've accomplished, for the things that we've gotten through from point A to point B and beyond, and all of the shit that we've had to deal with and navigate. And, both of us have had our own challenges throughout the years, and we're on a better we're both on a better side than it was
Yeah.
before. And, like that's something to be grateful for too. And to remind ourselves how far we've come from all of the shit that we've gone through, that's important to acknowledge too.
Yeah, for sure. Something else that I do, taking time to be mindful. We talked about being mindful, and some of this encompasses that, but doing like a gratitude meditation or saying some affirmations about what you're grateful for. It's kind of on in the same line as what we were talking about earlier, but being intentional about what those things are that you're affirming.
This is sort of it's on the same topic, but it's in just a different way to approach gratitude. Is something that I've practiced is also in job interviews. I've found it really successful and helpful and sort of set you apart in a way, is sending like a job interview follow-up email, or even a thank you card if you have the mailing address, or where the office is or anything like that. Is just send like a little handwritten note and just saying, thank you so much for your consideration. Thank you for the time, whatever piece of gratitude. It doesn't have to be super lengthy, but I found that has been a way to really personalize the job interview process, and it sets you apart because most people don't do that.
That's true.
Most people don't think about expressing that gratitude, but that goes a long way, I think, in showing them how much it means to you and how, like what you think of the company that you're interviewing for or the job or whatever it is. And so that's another way that gratitude can help to just to give you some sort of like forward movement.
Yeah, I always say in thank you, or in the past when I've written them, I'm grateful for the opportunity. And I mean, don't say that if it's not true. I'm not saying, but for me personally, that is something that I'm always super grateful for, because you never know how many other people didn't get an interview. You might not be hired and you might not get the job, but you had the opportunity to put your best foot forward. And some people don't even get that far.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, especially if you go through several rounds. If it's just one round, and then, you get a second round or third round or however many. I've heard people get up to 10 rounds of interviews. Can you imagine that?
No, I can't.
Like, that's insane. Like, and I know people who went through 10 rounds of interview and didn't get the job.
I know, that's crazy.
I'm just like, whoa, man, that's a crazy interview process. There must have been hundreds or thousands of people. So let's talk about how to find gratitude in challenging situations and things that are not easy to give gratitude towards, or like maybe difficult people. Or I think of work situations the most, when things are challenging, when we can't do things the way we want to do them. Maybe decisions are made that force us to do things a certain way. What are some ways that we can find gratitude in situations like that, do you think?
I think, I mean, I hesitate to say look for the silver lining, because that's not what this is necessarily about. But yeah, I mean, there are situations where every single thing about that situation is horrible. I try to find the positive in the situation as best I can. So I'm going to use an example that's happened in my life before. I was let go from a job. I was laid off, and at first I was really upset, and I was like, what am I going to do? And as I started to think about it, I actually kind of felt relieved, and I felt grateful that I was no longer working for an organization where my beliefs no longer align with theirs. It was kind of a toxic work environment, and I started to list all of the positive things. It doesn't take away from the stress and the negative part of the situation. I, still had a whole lot of stuff I needed to figure out, but I was able to kind of look at the positives of the situation and how they're going to benefit me. And it really did change my entire perspective on the situation.
For me, I don't think it's about, like you said, some things are just, nothing is going your way, or it's in not any way a great situation, or it's affecting you maybe in not positive ways. I think for me, it's about finding the meaning in the situation. And because like sometimes there may not be anything positive, or you can't see a positive, or maybe it doesn't affect you positively. If there are things that are challenging for you, yeah, it sucks, but it's going to help you grow. There was a time when I was in grad school, and there were some people that I had to work with, and I didn't like the way that they worked. And the way that I looked at it was like, well, whenever I'm the person in charge, that's the kind of leader I don't want to be. And so I used it as a way to observe bad leadership and people that are doing it very poorly, and to just know, okay, when they do this kind of thing, this is how people react. This is how they respond. That's not working. So take a mental note of what that is. And so whenever I'm in that position, I can basically learn from other people. So I think that there is meaning in sometimes being in shitty situations, and in situations that are not something that we would prefer. For me, it's not about making something negative positive and trying to like over positive, I was going to say over posify it, but that's not a word. But like making it overly positive, because I feel like some people have a tendency to like, oh, well, everything's fine, and
Right.
We're doing just fine, and everything's good, and we're just going to keep on going, do. And sometimes that's not how it is, and it's okay to be like not overly positive or pissed off about it or whatever. But it's about taking that and changing it in your mind, so that once you are moved past it, that it's not going to put you in this totally negative headspace, for ever and ever, because it's easy to get there, and then you're in depression and you're stressed out and you don't like your job or you want to do all this crazy, other stuff. And it's just like, it's easy to get there.
Yeah.
And it's taking these small bits of gratitude and sort of pulling yourself out of that hole.
Yeah, when you were talking, I was thinking about people with chronic illness, which I have. And the thing that came to mind was cancer. And I had a misdiagnosis of cancer, which is a whole other story that's very long. But what I was thinking is, the people who have chronic illness don't have to be grateful for the illness. It's not like we're saying, oh, be grateful that you're sick. The way that I look at it is, and of course, this is a choice that I'm making. I'm not saying this is right for everybody else. I'm grateful that I was finally able to find a doctor that was able to correctly diagnose and treat me. And I'm grateful that I'm able to help other people with this. And I'm grateful, and that also goes into finding meaning, but I've grown closer to several people because of it, or been able to spend more time with, my kids and things that you don't necessarily associate with chronic illness or, a diagnosis of some sort. And, I think that doesn't have to be right for everybody. That's just my personal way of handling it and how I find meaning and how I choose to find gratitude. But it definitely changes the outlook of things for me, because it could be a really bad all day, every day, just, negative and depressed. And I'm not saying I don't have those days, I'm human just like anybody else, but that's another way that I found to implement gratitude.
Yeah. Well, why don't we wrap this episode up with some gratitude of our own, and let's practice gratitude for what is going on with our lives and the things that we're grateful for right now. Just one piece of gratitude. For me, my piece of gratitude is I've been traveling the past week and the weather has been extremely cold. And I was in New Orleans for a few days and it was rainy and windy and the temperatures dropped pretty low. And then I flew back to Orlando and then I flew to Arkansas to see our family, and it was cold again and much, much colder, like 15 degrees. And as listeners can probably tell, my voice has kind of a cold because I'm kind of getting over that. So it's not very warm here. At least last night it wasn't. It was like 50 degrees. And to me, I was like, oh, this feels so much nicer. Now it's 75. So I'm
sitting
grateful
here at like 14 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. So, and sometimes it's nice to live in a warmer place because you don't have to worry about all the snow and all the really cold weather. So right now, that's what I'm grateful for.
Let's see. I had a really, really difficult weekend. And, today is a much better day. And I'm grateful that things are looking up and things have changed, and that I'm feeling better.
I'm really grateful for you too, Holly.
Oh, I'm grateful for you too.
Yeah. I'm glad that we are able to have these honest conversations. And, we've talked a lot about a lot of really like they're hard to navigate, some of the topics, and you can't just talk to anyone about them sometimes, and most people don't want to talk about them. So I feel like we've learned so much about each other just like doing this podcast and talking about these hard topics and things. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, me too.
Well, thank you so much for listening to our episode about how to create a positive mindset and using gratitude to do that. If you haven't already, please check our YouTube out, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can listen to our podcast, and please subscribe if you enjoy this content. And you can check our website out at runionshavelayers.com, and that has all of our links where you can listen, and it's just a super easy way to check our stuff out. So we'll see you next week.